What's going on, everybody? It's your boy C-Zar, and we are talking about Bitcoin today, BTC USD. Hit that like button, you guys. Subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and let's get into it, okay? It is the 8th day of August, and here we are. Dropping it low, girl. 116.5.4K, whatever. 8 hours, 56 minutes left in the day. This, the 8th of August, Friday, the very end of the week for the stock market. You know, it is possible that we come back down a little bit from here. I was thinking that we'd push a little higher first, a little bit higher, right? I mean, we've basically been bullish since this low up until, basically up until this point right here. And it wouldn't surprise me either way, right? It wouldn't surprise me if we went up to, let's say, 119K, 120K like we were talking about, and then we came down. But it wouldn't surprise me if we went down first, right? Based on the full moon analysis that we did, you know, typically you do move down after the full moon, but sometimes you move down just before it too. You pump into it, and then you'll dump on it or afterwards. I mean, today, guys, we got 8 hours, 55 minutes left. Who's to say we could go down to 115K today, come back up by the end of the day, and then tomorrow we hit a high, and then we come back down. You know, Bitcoin, that's very, very, very like Bitcoin over the past month now. It's been very, very volatile, that's for sure. I'm surprised that as this cycle has continued to go on, you know, I'm thinking in my head, just like all the times that we were in these long-term consolidation phases and waiting for the end of the cycle, waiting for specifically this point in time of this year, 2025, and thinking we're going to be in up-only mode. But we've only gotten more constructive, which that's not a bad thing, by the way. It's not a bad thing to be more constructive. It prolongs the cycle. It doesn't hasten it, that's for sure. But damn, man, when are we going to get rid of these quick pumps and then long phase consolidations? When are we going to be in up-only mode? I think it's coming soon. Coming to a market near you, but not right now. You know, looking at the daily time frame here, if today does close red, we're still in this downtrend. We are still in this downtrend in the RSI where we've got lower highs and lower lows. And I'm not saying that this is what will happen. I'm just saying it does encourage the idea that we could get a lower low in the RSI. Now, does that mean we get a lower low in the price? No. You can get lower lows in the RSI and have a higher low in the price. That's called hidden bullish divergence. We've seen that happen before. Let me see if I can find an example of that real quick. Well, let's see. I mean, here, you know, you had lows right here, and then here you had a lower low in the RSI, but you had higher lows there. You know, it can happen. But it does kind of make me wonder, you know, do we come back down here to this area? And if we do, we could go even lower than 115K. I mean, after all, we did the same kind of thing here, didn't we? We did that, and then we rallied, right? Although there we did get a lower low. Looking at that and enticing that idea, let's say, going to the liquidation map here. The shorts or the longs do have it on the 1 day and the 7 day period. Let's see. If we're looking at this here, 1 day, that'd be $115,000 would clear out this whole like kind of liquidation zone here. It wouldn't be crazy to go there. 7 day period, if you're looking at this over the past week, the amount of longs versus shorts. And the shorts have come up. The shorts have definitely come up. We'll go back to that in a second, but the shorts are decimated over the 7 day. On the 30 day, they're a lot higher. We have like $18 billion in shorts to liquidate at 123K. But here, we are right on the face of this kind of wall of longs to liquidate here. And I would imagine liquidating this would add to a lot of shorts, and some of these longs would deleverage, causing the price to give a kind of a long squeeze to the downside. 115K, again, right at this area, maybe even as low as 113.8K. And again, 113.8K is fine. We're okay with that. But to keep this low valid, we need to not close a day below 113K. For if we close below 113K, not only is it likely that this is not the low, but it's likely that we go to 110K and below. And of course we really could, especially with this RSI potentially getting down near this oversold zone, right? Maybe we double bottom like we did last time. We get a double bottom above it. That would be preferable. But if we get into the oversold zone, you guys, it's very possible that we go lower. Absolutely. You know, we're talking about validating this low today because if we can close above this 236 at 116.8K, that would validate it 2 days in a row, but we've only had 1 day to close above it. And then this kind of, just like this here, the 382, how closing below it and then closing above it the next day, bullish engulfing candle, was a bullish reversal. This could provide a bearish reversal. Now, I'm not saying that it will. We could close here and still the next day move up here, and then maybe the next day move down here. You know, it doesn't have to imply that we're going lower, but it does take the edge off to the bullish effect, right? It adds to the bearish effect a little bit there. And yeah, I don't know. Those are just my thoughts on the matter. So let's get into the short-term stuff, right? Let's get into the short-term stuff. I've thrown a lot at you guys so far. So looking at the 1 hour time, I mean, this is all short-term stuff anyways, but really the immediate stuff on the 1 hour time frame. If you're watching this, you know, it should have been obvious with the last hour's close, at least to me, that we would be moving down. There was some indecision. This what we did here, really, this is what you call indecision candles, right? These are indecision candles because, I mean, well, obviously, you're going up, you're going down, you're going up, you're going down. Candles like this, back to back, it's indecision, it's indecisive. And when you get indecisive candles, typically at a high, that likely does imply that you go lower. Not always. Look, we had some indecision candles back here, but do you see how we did the opposite thing? We chose a direction, but it was a fake out to the downside, and then we ripped to the upside. Here we chose a direction, but it was a fake out to the upside, and we might be ripping to the downside. It even kind of looks like a head and shoulders pattern if we're really looking at it, right? Like a slanted head and shoulders pattern. Like this could be the left shoulder here. This could be the head. This could be the right shoulder here, right? It kind of looks like a mouse. You know, slanted head and shoulders pattern, just like that. It really is actually a pretty perfect slanted head and shoulders pattern. And if it is, let's just say, for all intents and purposes, that it is. Maybe do something like that. I want to get these parallel because normally they're maybe it's more like this. I don't know. I feel like that'd be the breakout point. It's difficult with these slanted patterns sometimes, but let's just see if we were to bring it down here. I don't like that so, but they normally are parallel. Maybe we come down here, we find a little support, and then we break it later. I don't know. Let's assume that we're breaking out of it already, okay? If we take the low to the high of the pattern, assuming that it is a slanted head and shoulders pattern. In fact, let's actually take the high to the low so that we have the negative percentage assumption here. High to low, 1.7% down. If we're breaking out now, which I don't know if we are, but maybe, you know, that could take us down to about 114.4K. Which is very possible, you guys. Absolutely, it's very possible. And then with that, man, we might be forming another head and shoulders, right? Here's your left shoulder, here's your head. Come down here, you might have another head and shoulders pattern right there. Just saying. It doesn't have to be like that, but just, you know, thinking prospectively here. Looking at the price for what it is on the 1 hour time frame, let's throw some other indicators on here. What just happened? That was weird. How's everybody doing today? I hope you guys are doing good. You know, get some good sleep. If you're not doing good, it's probably because you didn't get good sleep, man. I just got the best night of sleep that I've had in like a week. I feel great, man. If you're on that note, if you notice, pay attention to yourself with this. We're going to talk about sleep for 1 minute, and we'll get back to the charts, okay? Pay attention to yourself with this. This is something that you can certifiably validate of what I'm about to say here, okay? In yourself. If you ever have a bad day, let's not even say like a bad day, because bad days can just happen, right, randomly. But I would bet most bad days are whenever you're sleep deprived. If you ever have a day where you're at work, or you're doing something with your family, or you're doing something even by yourself, and you just feel like the day just drags on and it won't stop, and it's taking forever, I would bet 99 out of 100 times, if not 100 out of 100 times, those days only happen when you don't get good sleep. The days where you're at work, you're doing something with your friends or your family, and time is flying, I would bet you got good sleep. I bet you got really good sleep. Right. Notice that in yourself. Notice next time that you're having one of those days that drags on. We all know those days, right? Also, by the way, if you have one of those days that drags on, maybe get a different job, because if you have a job and that's how work is sometimes. The day just drags on, but if you ever have a day where it feels like the day's just dragging on, it won't end. Ask yourself, did I get good sleep last night? I'll bet a lot. I'll bet all my Bitcoins that you did not get good sleep. But anyways, 1 hour time frame here. Looks like you're in a downtrend in the 1 hour RSI. You do actually overall have an uptrend, right? Higher lows, higher highs, but you're doing something different here, right? In found support like this, and now you're consolidating. It makes sense that you'd break through. So break through. That's what you're doing. You look like you're going to go lower. Maybe at least to the 40 to bounce, so a little bit lower. Maybe we get to the oversold zone and we do, stretch down to that 115K level. I really wouldn't be surprised if we did go to 115K. Stochastics look like they're, getting oversold right now. MACD coming down. Doesn't say that we have to go tremendously lower, but something, maybe to scoop the zero to find support there. Right, something like that, or we might even cross the zero. We've kind of gone above, below. In fact, let's just look at this real quick, right? We haven't really found support at the MACD 1 hour zero level, this level here with our oscillators at all. We found resistance a couple of times, but even then, most of the time, it looks like we're just oscillating between these, right? We're going up, down, up, down. I bet all of these, let's just do this real quick, ready? I'll circle this, I'll circle this, I'll circle this. This one seems a bit intense. I'm sure the low was over here, but we can circle this whole area here. Circle that, circle that. These are probably all relative lows, right? Why is that relevant to what I'm saying? Because if we're moving down, we might be finding a relative low. Well, if we're finding a relative low, might it be below the zero line? Maybe. And if we're looking at this here on the 1 hour, this area here, that was our last relative low. And of course, you had a relative low here as well, but relative low on a bigger move down than any of these moves down that we had here. Big move down right here, relative low. While the MACD was actually found a double bottom, started to move up. Even if you bought here, which I did, and you had to sit through a little bit of pain, which I did, it came back up, right? Relative low here, relative low there. A lot of lower lows. Each one of these actually coming up to reject the zero. Each one of these could be considered like a relative low area too in itself, but that last little dip right before you crossed the zero, that was the lowest part of this range, and then you came up relative high as well. It works either way, right? So same kind of concept here. Maybe this was a relative high, and it looks like it was a relative high, and I think that we're going to go down, especially with this notion of the fake out to the upside and then coming back down. We got 44 minutes left in this 1 hour time frame. Let's see how it goes. I'm not a big fan of being bearish on candles that start off bearish, right? Like this candle, whenever we were watching it opened up and it went up here in the first like 10 minutes, right? Kind of like this candle, how it came down in the first 10 minutes. And that, in my opinion, I was like, oh, this is bearish. this is a fake out candle right here. And it did fake out. And I don't have any way to verify that, but I'm just saying that's kind of how it is. Same thing with this candle over here. I remember it opened up down really fast, and then we came up. Doesn't mean that we have to come up from here. Doesn't mean that this candle will reverse, but I'm just not a big fan of calling for lower prices whenever you open up a fresh candle and you've already made some leeway down and you have a little bit of a wick there. But it does happen. It does happen. Sometimes we get these red candles without wicks to the upside. If that doesn't make sense to you, don't worry about it. We're going to move on, okay? All that I'm saying here is all of these indicators to me, I wouldn't say they're mega bearish, especially not the RSI, but they're all suggestive and accepting of the idea of lower prices, however slight, right? I would think something around 115 and a half, if not 115K. I would definitely think that we go lower. 4 hour time frame here. Stochastics have gotten from the overbought zone and come down. The stochastics are in a bullish posturing. We can find support at the 50. We've done it before. So at least there, right? A little bit lower, if not all the way to the oversold zone. Typically, with the stochastics, you get oversold, you get overbought, oversold, overbought, oversold, typically. And to that effect, we could go down to 115K or even lower. It is Friday. We do have the weekend upon us. And I was thinking that the weekend would be a bullish weekend. But maybe it's not. Maybe it's not. Maybe we go back to the idea. I don't know if you guys remember this, but whenever we were down here at this low, or maybe I think it was around this low, and we were talking about moving up to like this exact area. Would it be? I think it would be this fib here, from a low to a high, or a high to a low. Sorry. Yeah, we were talking in this area. I remember because we literally expected that we'd bounce off the 0.69, come up to the 0.5, and what Bitcoin specifically has been doing lately. First off, it's been loving its 0.5 for resistance or support. Secondly, Bitcoin and crypto as a whole, we've been seeing this for whatever reason. I've been seeing it for the past like couple months, especially really since this consolidation phase started. Moving up to the 0.5 and then coming down to the 236 and then moving up, which it's a bit unorthodox. It's a bit weird, but doesn't that look like a perfect trajectory? High or low, doesn't it? It looks pretty good. And with that, we'd be bouncing at 114.5K. And I would expect that as we move down, I mean, 114.5K would put us right up against this area here. I'd expect as we move down, more longs get piled on. We eat those longs up, but more shorts will get piled on as well. Don't forget, guys, on the 30-day period, we got a lot of shorts. We got a lot of shorts to move through, you guys. But maybe we clear out this island of longs first. And it says 115.3K here to move through it. Maybe we move through it a little bit more, right? Typically, these longs do get pushed back. So going a little bit below 115K, I could see it happening. I could really see that happening. On the flip side of that, on the less bearish effect, it is fairly common when working your way higher to go from the 0.5 to the 382 and then up. You know, and even in this kind of environment, I wouldn't be surprised if we ripped through the golden ratio. You know, you could go all the way up to your 786. Bitcoin does like it's 786, but I don't know. Maybe it's time to consider that 236 as a possibility. 114.5K. I kind of like that target right now. Let's see if we can come up with other stuff that agrees with that. 114. I'm going to put a line there. 114. You see 114.5 essentially is what that is. Let's put a line right there. It's a little bit like right there, right? It's a little bit higher than that, but prior area of support, relatively around this area of support as well. You don't have to go there exactly, but I'm just saying, you know, it makes a little bit of sense to me. If we take a high to a low here, we've gone up to our golden ratio. That's our golden ratio too. We've seen this happen before too, going from the golden ratio to the golden ratio and then up to your double golden ratio at the 2618. We've seen this kind of serendipitous effect happen before. Not that it has to happen, but I would say, and most of the time I do say, not financial advice, not a financial advisor, I would say that if you hit these extensions, these primary extension zones, the way that you keep the move alive is that you at the very most cannot drop below the golden ratio. And I shouldn't even say that. You could wick below there, but don't close below there, right? So 4-hour time frame, let's move it up because we moved up a little bit. 113K is a good area to hold, okay? If you want to validate this as, or at least keep the idea that this is the low alive, you want to keep that idea alive. But I would think that second to that, and truly second to that, would be 114.5K. We don't want to close a 4-hour time frame or higher time frame below $114.5 thousand. If we do that, we effectively validate this as a high and potentially start to think of this as something that we will break through. Okay? Just understand that. So 114.5K is that new line in the sand to hold. It might be perfect because people might look back over here and say, oh, we broke through that line. It's going to go lower. And that line doesn't matter. I don't know. I'm just thinking here, thinking out loud. Maybe people will be waiting for this trend line to be interacted with, right? We're going lower. We're probably going to go down all the way down to here, but then we actually find support above that trend line, which is more bullish. You guys know how I am with these diagonal lines. I think that if we go here, we're more likely to break through it, find support below it. Maybe we get a double bottom. Maybe we get a slightly lower low, something like that. Or in a bullish scenario, you would actually find support above it. You wouldn't interact with it on the third trend or the third attempt because that would actually be a more bullish effect, right? So 114.5K, if there's one thing that you could take away from this video, hold 114.5K on a 4-hour closing basis or higher time frame. Okay, I think that's important to maintain this momentary uptrend, and that's important to validate the idea that this is the low and break out of this downtrend that we've been in now since July 14th for almost a month here. 4-hour time frame. We were just looking at the RSI, or we were looking at the stochastics. The RSI did get into the overbought zone and out of it. You are in an uptrend with the RSI. This is probably your most bullish case right here, actually, for even a slightly higher high. But perhaps you come down a little bit. Perhaps you come down a little bit more. Again, the 1 hour, the 4-hour, just like the 1 hour, is suggestive of a slightly lower price, if anything at all, at least a slightly lower price. And what do I mean by that? You know, we're at 116.3K now, maybe 116, maybe 115.8, something slightly lower. If not there, then maybe 115K or even lower than that, which those are all slightly lower lows whenever we're talking about a $116,000 asset. But I would think that we go lower based on the stochastics and based on the RSI. The MACD is not giving me a whole lot, but what I will say, if we look at this, that's a lot. That's a lot of green. That is a lot of non-stop green action. We don't really get this uninterrupted green. I mean, we had it here. Let's just see how many iterations did we get here. We had 30 4-hour time frames that were green. That's a long time, guys. That's a lot of green iterations without anything red. Here we're at 31. 31, right? That's not 30. That's definitely not 30. Did I delete it? I must have deleted it. Yeah, that one looks like 30. I mean, we don't really get too much longer than that. That's pretty extreme. It does look bullish. The MACD does look bullish overall. We are decaying in bullish momentum, though. We've been bullish for a while. Is there a rule that says, oh, well, you've been green this long, so you have to come down? No. I mean, you could be green for a lot longer if you really wanted to. I mean, I'm sure it's happened before in Bitcoin's history, but I'm just not calling for that personally. Okay, it would, if anything, bearish here, semi-bearish here, exhausted perhaps here on the MACD. What about another perspective beyond just the length of time that we've been green on the histogram? What about the level of the histogram itself and the level of the oscillator? You found resistance here before on the oscillator. You don't really find resistance here on the histogram. It looks like you like to go higher. Okay, a couple times here, whatever. It's a okay, so something around this area right there, a little bit even. You found resistance there on the oscillator as well. Resistance on the histogram there. It's fairly common. You could definitely find resistance here. 35 minutes left in this 4-hour time frame too. It looks kind of decisive in the idea that we're going down. So let's run with that idea. I'm thinking 114.5K to 115.8K. Okay, that's the area that we're looking for. We're very near that area now. Maybe even, let's say, 115.4K. Bitcoin did touch it did touch its 236. Let's see. Let's look at this on a 1-hour time frame. You touched your 236. You found resistance at your 069. Interesting kind of dynamic here. And we've been very squirrely. Who's to say? I mean, by the time you watch this, we could be back up at 117K. But I would think that one way or another, we're working our way down to at least 115.4K, I would say. And at the most, 114.5K. If we close below 114.5K, we can go from there. That doesn't mean that we go lower than this low. But it would imply lower prices, that's for sure. I've got nothing else. Thank you all for being here. I'll see you on the next one. Okay, take care of yourselves. Hit the like button, subscribe. Bye-bye.